Good morning. This is the National Weather Service here in San Angelo, Texas, with your weekly weather briefing. If we take a look at some of the key highlights for this briefing, we're going to cover the expected severe weather for this afternoon, as well as potential heat-related impacts for this week. And pretty much the key details on those two things is really our severe weather will largely be forced off of a dry line, and potentially we could see some large hail, damaging winds, and maybe even an isolated tornado this afternoon and evening, and we'll cover some of the details on that here on the next couple slides. With respect to the prolonged heat, we are expecting a little bit of a period later on through the end of this week where we could see some heat-related illnesses associated with that as well. So if we cover today's severe weather threat, you'll notice that the hazards are pretty much just about everything. We have large hail, damaging winds, and isolated tornadoes we previously mentioned. One thing I do want to mention that's not on this slide is that some of these thunderstorms, particularly across Throckmorton and Haskell counties, they may be efficient rainfall producers, so potentially some localized issues with excessive rainfall will certainly be possible, but that's going to be a very small portion of our area across, again, Haskell and Throckmorton counties. So when's this activity going to develop? We're largely expecting afternoon and then continuing on through the evening, roughly until about dark. So some of this activity will largely be forced off the dry line, which if you take a look at the map on the right, the dry line is pretty much going to set up from Sonora to San Angelo up to about areas in between Sweetwater and Abilene. That's kind of where that dry line is oriented. So areas that are east of there, those are the areas that we think that this activity will develop off of. The rain chances are pretty low overall at about 20%, so we do expect the coverage to be low, and as a result of that, we are expecting that the nature of the severe threat will be pretty isolated. So that's just something to keep in mind going forward for today. But as we get into the remainder of the week, including really for some locations today as well, we're largely expecting it to be very hot, which will pose a risk for an increase in heat-related illness. So some locations potentially on Tuesday could set some new high-temperature records as well. The record for San Angelo is 107, and we've forecast 106, so we're right around those record values. In fact, the forecast for Abilene is actually calling for us to break the record, so that's something to keep an eye on as we go through the next 7 days. And the reason I bring that up is to really just emphasize the fact that this is going to be some exceptionally hot weather here on Tuesday in particular. But going through the rest of the week, the majority of the locations will be in the upper 90s, but quite a few locations across our locations further to the south, across Interstate 10, some of those areas might break into the triple digits pretty much through this coming weekend potentially. So it's going to be very hot this week. Some of the recent rainfall that we have received over the last few days and the last week or two has really helped to alleviate some of our drought conditions, as you can see here on this map. So I'll just give you just a brief moment here to take a look at the drought conditions across your county to see where you stand. And generally, the abnormally dry areas are across the Concho Valley and Interstate 10 corridor, as you can see on that map. So taking a look at the outlooks for temperature and precipitation for the next 10 days, you'll notice that we have a chance for being above normal temperature-wise. So again, from a previous slide, we mentioned some of the very hot conditions that are expected through the next 7 days are reflected in that, as well as some of the precipitation outlooks are showing some of that previous rainfall that we had over the previous couple of days there. But looking forward, again, as you saw on some of the previous slides, that very hot conditions will be setting in here over the next few days. So I think that's pretty much the highlights of what we have going on this week. It's pretty simple. So here's some updated contact information and a location where you can see the slides if you want to review them. But as always, that's all we have for you today. So as always, please take care and enjoy the day.